Welcome to Growth Colony. I'm Alex Hipwell with Xgrowth. On this podcast, you'll be hearing from B2B founders, CMOs, marketing and sales leaders to find out what's going on and what they're doing in the exciting world of B2B. Today, we're talking to Michael Doherty, Head of Business Development at Smarter City Solutions, an Australian software and technology services organisation that is leading the way with integrated parking systems. Shahin and Michael discuss what companies need to take into consideration if they want to sell to government. That's right, today we're talking B2G. How should the marketing team approach it and what should sales be doing? On that note, let's dive in.
Michael, thanks for joining us.
Shane, thanks so much for having me.
It's an absolute pleasure. So we're talking B2G, we're talking government, and this is definitely a hot topic these days, considering how much money basically is flowing out of the government and this the mandates that government entities have to spend in order to stimulate the economy, but also government is always a big spender. So I guess, the first question that I have is what would you say are some of the most clear differences between selling and marketing to the private sector and selling and marketing to the government and public sector?
I think one of the clear differences on the selling side is the sales cycle and its length. So from my experience selling into the private sector, and we have solutions for the private sector, there can be a need identified within that business. They can look around and go to the market. They can see a clear business case and make a decision internally in their operation and execute very quickly. The government executes very slowly.
the length of that sales cycle is going to make you go old.
Yeah, and I was at a conference a few years ago and in Brisbane, and someone was talking about this very topic about big organizations like business and small organizations like startups, and how government can kill startups. Those long sales cycles can actually be terminal for a small organization that's looking for some initial cash flow. Fortunately, in our business, we're not that small, and we're well tuned to surviving those long sales cycles. But I think the answer to your question is clearly, a private organization can execute on a decision very, very rapidly, and due to a number of reasons, government have these procurement needs and their own internal abilities to get a budget together, and it's just so much slower.
Yeah, very interesting. And is there any difference in terms of how you talk to a government entity versus how you talk to a private entity? Like, would you say the mandates of the people that are there are a little bit different, or those are kind of the same in the two?
They're largely the same. I would say one of the subtle differences is that a decision maker in government quite often feels comfortable to choose you and to build some requirements, for example, around the offering being presented to them, if it's been done elsewhere. So the tilt, but let's say between, hey, I'm innovative, I've got the latest and greatest best of breed solution that's just hitting the market for you, might be attractive to the private sector. Whereas that needs to skew slightly to, hey, we've got a proof of capability. We've got operations in all of your neighbours. Hey, you've got to better the Joneses. Come and do what your peers in your industry are doing. That's slightly more of a tilt when you're talking to government. They really need that comfort, and I suppose the appetite versus adversity to risk is slightly different.
Yeah, social proof becomes a lot more important than it's still important in other sectors, but over here probably becomes even more important. One of the things that I'm always fascinated by, and we're always trying to figure out, and what are some of the best ways to do it, is how to open doors into government, right? What are some of the strategies that you implement in order to open doors and get meetings and start conversations with government entities?
It's a slow burn. It's really that's an area where I don't think there is a lot of difference. People buy from people, right? So if I'm picking up the phone and introducing myself to someone for the first time because I've learned through my research that's a person worthwhile talking to, they can influence and make decisions in that organization, then I'm just going to very quickly and succinctly explain what it is that I'm wanting to talk to them about and why I think it would be in their interests to just invest 45 minutes, 60 minutes in having a meeting with me. And I think in Australia especially, and even more so selling to government, it's got to be soft, right? I'm sure that decision makers in various levels of government have their phone ring every day, and there's someone keen as mustard on the end of the line that's motivated to get that purchase order ASAP. And to me, and from my experience selling to government, that's getting off on the wrong foot. Government buyers like to see consistency. They grow a relationship very slowly. They feel comfort, and then the ability to then get more meetings, get more FaceTime, get more of the message across, and influence, a future requirement statement, for example, just gets easier over time. So you've got to, as a sales professional, set out with an expectation that this is not going to happen this quarter. This is an investment that's a long investment, and if I convey that tone, from my experience, it brings a lot more success over time. But it's a pipeline building exercise that's often slow to bring the ringing of the bell.
Yeah, it's a pipeline building exercise, but not for the weak-hearted. You gotta have the stamina for building that kind of pipeline. Do you think
in more ways than one, you've got to have the business behind you, you've got to have the ability to survive, and then as a sales professional, you've got to have that mindset. Yeah.
Do you think relationships are more important in government than they are in public sector?
In private sector, I think relationships equally as important, whether it be the private sector or the government sector. And in either case, people can change and move around. And we're seeing, especially, in these present times, organizations are changing in size. They're therefore having no choice but to restructure. The person that you've been talking to about your product for the last 24 plus months may all of a sudden change out, and you've got to do your best to sort of transition that and bring the new person up to speed and not lose any traction when it comes to that relationship. Yeah, it's an interesting question, Shane,
Because
I think.
the reason I ask is, how somebody would go, and this is common quite in a lot of organizations where they would go and they would hire a salesperson from Telstra, right? They've been in Telstra for a couple of years. They have a Rolodex of contacts, and they bring them in. And I always wonder if that is even more effective with government compared to private sector. But it seems like you feel like it's pretty much at the same level.
Yeah, that's a pertinent question, because I'm looking at growing our sales team right at the moment, and it would be very attractive for me to poach someone out of my industry who's got that Rolodex, as you refer to, because when that individual picks up the phone and calls somebody and says, "Hey, I'm not at company A now, I'm at company B," there's an immediate inquisitiveness and a conversation. The ice is well and truly broken. There never was any ice, and you push on. To take someone from outside of the industry and say, "Right, let's get you up to speed. Let's either communicate or at least have internally in the management team some kind of expectation about time to bear fruit." I know from my days in the IT industry, a salesperson moving into an IT firm to build their pipeline and start bringing in revenue had 6 months, if it was a blend of B2G and B2C, for example. I think in this space, you would be very pleased if someone's activities that started inside the last 6 months started turning into purchase orders.
Yeah,
at
fair
least of any substantial size. I mean, you could throw in exceptions like go to market thresholds where organisations can pull the trigger on very small purchases quickly. But for large purchases, yeah, I'd be smiling like a Cheshire cat if my sales guy had turned something around inside 6 months.
I'll definitely let you know if I come across someone. But one of the challenges that we have when we work with our clients and they're targeting through our agency and they're targeting government is specifically for opening doors is we use like a lot of gifts for private sector, and that all of a sudden is a no, and it's a minefield when it comes to government. And you can send gifts, but then there are some government entities that are like $20 limits, and then there are some government entities that are $300 limits, and there's no standard of like this is the minimum. So all of a sudden those strategies all of a sudden fall apart. How would you approach let's say you have a government entity on your target account list, right? And nobody in there. What are some of the strategies that you would leverage to get to know that person and connect with them?
Yeah, I once heard, and I can't remember the exact quote, but I once heard salespeople likened to different breeds of dogs, right? So there's some that are aggressive and they're the pit bull, and they'll just go and bash on the door and go and introduce themselves and figure it out. And then at the other end of the scale, I think it was a Chihuahua or something where the salesperson would do a lot of research, right? So, and I like to think I'm somewhere in the middle, but I certainly do research. So if I had heard through my network that there's this new entity or there's an entity I've not spoken to and they're going to be worthwhile speaking to, you've got to do research, right? Google's your friend. LinkedIn is even a bigger friend. However, having said that, doing some of this research just yesterday, I continue to be surprised by organisations and individuals within large semi-government organisations and government organisations that are not on LinkedIn. Yeah, that's kind of frustrating as a sales professional. But it's a case of using a multitude of tools in your toolkit. Sometimes you've got to get in through an industry colleague that might have a complementary product, in our case, technology. Yeah, you might just go straight up to the receptionist. You might just phone the switchboard number and just for a minute or two build a relationship with that person. And that tends to be my style as well. It's to not hide the fact you're making a cold call.
I love it.
Yesterday, I phoned an organisation and I got to the right department, and then I just said to that person really quickly, "This is what we do. This is the other organisations like yours that we do it for. Can you help me by directing me to the right person?" And sometimes you get an old-fashioned gatekeeper, and they say, send an email to company@companyname.com. And then on this,
nobody sees it again.
That's right. And then on this occasion, the lady went away and she came back and she said, "I'm going to put you straight through to first name, last name.
Oh, wow.
The person will talk to you now." And
that's gold dust.
Yeah, that was great. Yeah. So I think the tone and the demeanor and how you behave, it's important, and it can result in different outcomes.
Got it. What do you think salespeople and marketers need to understand about the internal dynamics of government entities in order to be able to market to them better and sell to them better? We've touched on this a little bit, but is there anything else that you think marketers and salespeople need to keep in mind when they're dealing with government?
Yeah, I think we all read the news every day, and we live in a very dynamic and fast-changing world. But government has themes, they have news, they have things that are topical to them, but they're not fast-changing and they're not rapid. So, you might take a buzzword, for example, like big data. And everyone thinks, yeah, big data is yesterday. No one's talking about big data. No one's talked about it for 5 years. Well, you might get a couple more years out of that directive inside a government organisation because they've got some budget attached to smart city or big data, or some motivation that could have come down from federal funding. It could have something to do with an environmental Kyoto promise that's got some federal budget wrapped around it that then comes down into state, which quite often often comes down into local government as well. So I think you've just got to be mindful of where those little pots of gold are. What's on the mind of the prospect on any given day? And it may be quite different to a non-government organisation.
Do you ever find yourself stuck with a B2B problem? Need a second opinion on your next campaign? Or looking for some feedback on that piece of MarTech you're thinking to purchase? Well, that's why we created the Growth Colony Slack channel. This Slack channel is like a small dinner party where you get to meet and mingle with B2B professionals, hear what others are doing, and keep up to date with the latest B2B trends and news. You'll also get access to a range of exclusive content from our podcasts, webinars, and events. The best thing about it, it's all free. If this sounds interesting, head over to growthcolony.org/Slack and sign up. That's growthcolony.org/Slack.
What about events? Where do events come into play? I mean, especially let's talk pre-COVID and post-COVID when it comes to government.
Shane, events are massively important in what we do because the attendees are there, right? They don't have their receptionist and their automatic glass gates keeping the salespeople away. They're in the same building, and it's a very, very busy time for us. Not only during the, let's say, 3 days of the conference, if we're talking about that kind of event, but the lead up to it, and most importantly, the follow up that happens afterwards. You talked earlier about gifts. We often do prize giveaways, pull someone's business card out of a fishbowl, all of those sorts of things to try and again just make it a pleasant experience for people. I can't buy a coffee for someone I meet with in local government. I've pretty much given up trying. It's like, we'll walk out of their office building, we'll go to the cafe. I'm going to have a skim flat white. Mr. Prospect, what would you like? It's like, no, I need to buy my own. That's how crazy the gift thing's gotten. Whereas if we're at an event, that can change. That person is surrounded by my competitors. They're not just exclusively dealing with me. If there's a drink or something,
I'll have that bowl of champagne, no problem.
Can be taken. Yeah, it's something like that. So yeah, that's a very, very important time for us in our business and our ability to market. And that's almost like a whole different podcast. I think it's like how do you attract someone to your stand? How do you work out ahead of time who the key people are, who's on your hit list? How do you divide up your time? Because before you know it, 3 days are gone, and you're like, oh, I really wanted to talk to that person and that person, and then you do your debrief and sit back and look at the event and say, how can we do it better? So COVID was obviously a big challenge. We'd set aside budget, we'd paid deposits, we'd worked out our travel plans. You obviously try and make good use of your airline tickets and that sort of thing. So you set up some meetings before in that town and some meetings after in that town, and you're all excited to go. And then the plug gets pulled on the physical face-to-face event. And I really feel sorry for the event industry. They did some Zoom type conferences, and some people gave presentations in a Zoom type fashion, but it's not the same for a marketer and a salesperson having an expo floor with a booth of a certain size and a space of a certain size, and a lot of effort goes into how that looks and feels and sounds. And we're chomping at the bit for those physical events to come back.
Yeah, fair enough. You touched on innovation and change in organization. You gave the big data example, and the Smart City Solutions is quite an innovative company, and with the solutions that you offer. But how do you enable change and innovation in government? Because it's so slow, because it's big data was 5 years ago. And then 2 years ago, there was an initiative, 3 years ago, there was an initiative in government that they're like, oh, we should look into that. And then 3 years later, the budget was approved. So now the world has moved on, and then they're talking about big data. How do you enable government to when it comes to innovation?
I think the short answer is hard work. We're pushing our solutions it's interesting. If you take one of our products is a parking payment app. So there's a clear B to G and B to C marketing exercise. And the reason I bring that up is I think in answer to your question, I'll go around the country and I'll talk to a provider of parking and say, this is really what you need to be doing. And 7-8 years ago, I was explaining to people what this concept was, right? So, this is a smartphone. This is an app. You can actually find parking, pay for parking using an app. And that conversation's now changed. And it's a combination of I've been out there talking and educating the market for long enough that they get it. But my second point is that we've really shown success and marketed those early adopters through the B2C channel, right? So we've got a fantastic user experience when it comes to what the motorist does, and then we communicate with them and we survey them every 12 months, for example, and we encourage them to say to the other places that they could use our technology, hey, you guys should be looking at this technology. And that's one of the upsides of selling to government, because you are essentially talking to elected officials, right? If I'm talking to my local municipality, I can say to my local member, this municipality is behind. Look what I do over the road. At your neighbours, I've got this innovation. I've got this technology that's working really well. So I think, as is the case in a lot of marketing businesses, you've got to find a way, or I've got to find a way at least, to balance the push and the pull. I want to be communicating to the decision maker, but I also want others to communicate to that decision maker and really pull them along. And as we said earlier in this conversation, they're happy and comfortable to follow another organisation. The real challenge for me in my role is seeking out the individual inside government that actually has an appetite for innovation and change. That's a rare beast. And once you can grab hold of one of those people, then you can snowball it over time.
Yeah, because there are challenges, right? You might come across someone with the right title, but they're really thinking about retirement. They're really thinking about, I'm going to be retiring in 3 years' time. I don't want to change anything. Just let me be, right? Are those the kind of people that you do come across?
Yeah, absolutely. And there was one organization where I was, trying to get in, and I found this person was the decision maker. It was an elderly gentleman, and I furnished him with the features and benefits of our offering. And there were some other people kind of in the periphery that weren't sort of key decision makers in that area, but they were obviously in a supporting role. And in the particular example I'm thinking of, just out of the blue one day, I went to an event, and the usual person that I would have spoken to that I knew was approaching retirement wasn't there. And I got to know the sort of the representative from this organisation just a little bit better in a very quick conversation. And this lady said, "Yeah, I know who you are, and we're going to be talking very soon." And it was like, yeah, she does remember me, and she's now in a decision-making role. And I didn't realise that she was chomping at the bit to move into that role once that individual had retired, and instigate fantastic change and implement innovation. Then it was just all a matter of things had to happen in a certain order. So yeah, that was a lesson for me. Don't look at someone who you think you're not going to get any traction with and give up, because it might actually be a little bit surprising.
That could potentially be the key person. Do you find yourself doing a lot more hand-holding and helping building business case studies for when you're dealing with government entities, or not really? That's like a hands-off thing.
Case studies we do, and I'm actually reviewing all of our case studies right at the moment. It's quite topical. But one area that's a challenge in B2G is a lot of government organisations will not endorse a product. So I could implement something with a private organisation. I can have my delivery team and my technology guys do the great work that they do and hand over a fantastic project on time, on budget, make that individual in government look like a rock star, or in a private industry look like a rock star. And the question, do you mind if I get a reference from you? Can I get a written quote? In government, 80% of the times, probably no. In private sector, 80% of the times, yes. So yeah,
that's very true. I've had governments give us a testimonial. You can take away the logo and the name and the photo of the person and read the quote, and you'd be like, this came from government, didn't it? It's just so bland, so simple. They did the job well. We enjoyed working with them, and that was like something in those lines. And you could definitely tell this came from government, and it's just as tamed as possible. The quote. Well, Michael, this has been awesome. I have a few rapid questions that I want to ask you, but before I kind of ask those questions, is there anything else that you think I didn't ask or we need to touch on when it comes to selling and marketing to government?
I think you did touch on the people aspect of it. And I think a sales professional, if they believe in their product, and that's something that's really important to me and all the way throughout my career, if a person believes in their offering and their service, whether it's the slow burn in government or whether it's something a little bit more exciting in the private sector, it has the same result. People can sense in a marketing exercise or in a sales engagement the passion and I think selling in this country is fun. It's a fair income thing. People want to understand whether they're going to be let down or whether they're going to be made to look good. And most Australians enjoy implementing innovative solutions. So yeah, I really enjoy it. And I think over a sales professional and marketing professional's career selling to government, you just adapt. But you got to keep smiling, and you got to
adapt. That's
you got to have fun, right? Yep.
Yeah, you don't do that, you're done. You're out of the door. Okay, I'm going to ask these 4 rapid questions. Okay, first question is, what is one resource? This could be a book, it could be a blog, it could be a podcast, it could be a talk, whatever it is that fundamentally changed the way you work or live.
Probably a short course I did at the Australian Institute of Management. I think it was called Selling Skills or something like that when I was very young. And there's some things that I just take for granted that I learned in that. And I was thinking about it just recently. You should never take that education for granted.
I've definitely had selling courses and they are a game changer. You're absolutely right. I love it. Question number 2, if you could give one advice to B2B or B2G marketers or salespeople, what would it be?
The pace at which your expectations are set. Just slow things down and set your expectations at the appropriate timeline, and you'll achieve success if you're setting the bar at the right spot.
Yeah, that's very true. Just have patience and hang in there. Hang in there.
Exactly. Well said.
Number 3 is, what are some of the influencers that you follow in the sales and marketing space?
Some of the people I do keep an eye on from time to time, and not necessarily about sales and marketing, they're business leaders. So yeah, Simon Sinek is someone out of the US that I just think reminds us of common sense stuff all the time. So he's got a book called True Leaders Eat Last or something along those lines. Team building, just little reminders from time to time, little 4-minute videos I watch, just to kind of compare your organization and your team and the positivity to other organizations, because you can get pretty caught up looking inside. It's good to look outside every now and again. Yeah,
very true. It's so easy to get caught up in the weeds. And the last one is, what kind of excites you right now about the B2G space today?
I think when you look at the pandemic, every government everywhere around the world has a massive responsibility to get the economy back up and running. People have had to rely on stimulus in one way, shape or form. And I think as we hopefully, touch wood, return to normal, B2G is not a bad place to be. The government will always be there. And as one large city council said to me just yesterday in a joking fashion, we're good for the money. We can pay the invoice. So yeah, there's certainly some upside. Yeah.
There are not a lot of insolvencies that happen there, huh?
No,
sounds right. Good. Well, yeah. Michael, I really appreciate it. This has been a great conversation, and I'm sure a lot of our listeners are going to get a lot out of it. If somebody wants to know more about Smart City Solutions, what's the best way for them to find out?
So yeah, our website is smartercitysolutions.com. And yeah, there's going to be some material going up there over the next little while as we continue to drive that medium in our business, as I talked about earlier. And Shane, it's been great to chat. Thanks for having me.
No, pleasure's all mine. Thank you so much, Michael.
Great. Talk soon.
Hey, it's Alex again from X Growth. Thanks so much for joining us on this episode. If you enjoyed it, we'd love it if you take a moment to rate us on Apple Podcasts. It would really help get the word out to other B2B professionals. If you're hungry for more B2B content, make sure to join our Slack channel at growthcolony.org/Slack, where we share the latest B2B news, tactics, tips, and chat about problems we're facing in the B2B space and find solutions together. That's growthcolony.org/Slack. Thanks for tuning in. We'll catch you in the next episode.